You're listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
Check, check, 1, 2. Hope you like a little country, some rock and roll and blues, 'cause we sure love playing for good people like you. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2.
Welcome to Music Local and Sustainable, the radio show that features discussions with and the music of local musicians. I am your host, Dave Lake. Tonight we have Cecelia Arango, a local singer on the cabaret stage as well as the musical stage. In fact, this month she is starring in Jesus Christ Superstar. Welcome, Cecelia Arango.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
How did you get into singing?
It started off when I was young. My dad has always been a social butterfly, and his whole family actually sings. And so I started off singing Vietnamese songs. I've never learned how to write in Vietnamese or anything like that, but my dad would give me a song and he'd say, listen to it. So I would phonetically write the lyrics to this. I'd sing it at our New Year's celebrations or weddings and parties and things like that.
And how old were you at this time?
I was in elementary school.
Okay.
So I started actually singing in third grade, actually on the stage. We moved to Savannah from Columbus, Georgia when I was in third grade. I actually went to school for a year over at Eli Whitney Elementary School. That's on President Street. I mean, it's no longer a running school. Because I guess during that time, with all the influx of Vietnamese and different ethnicities at that school, they had this program called ESOL, English as a Second Language. So I helped dictate and I helped with translating things to the Vietnamese kids. And I just remember back then they even had this talent segment and I sang Love in Any Language. And I remember they had this whole video and I wish I could find it. But yes, I started singing at that young age and singing in Vietnamese. And
so you understood the language?
I understood parts of the language. My parents would have to explain to me exactly what the song meant because It was all kind of like poetry. I was voluntold to do a lot of these events from my dad, which, family, at the time I hated it, but then it became one of my passions and I loved doing it.
Is there a large Vietnamese community here in Savannah?
I would say there used to be a larger community here. They've all kind of moved away to California, Louisiana. When I moved here in third grade, I remembered it being a large Vietnamese community, and not so much now. I don't think so.
Because I know the reason that they were in Savannah and along the Gulf Coast was because of fishing. Mm-hmm. Because many came from fishing villages, and many were fishermen or had that skill as well as other skills.
Yeah, that's why we moved here. My parents actually met in the States. So my mom lived in Columbus, Georgia. My dad was here in Savannah. They met at a party here in Savannah. And so I was born in Columbus, and then we moved to Savannah because my dad ended up purchasing a shrimp boat called the Cecelia Tran. He had it for a couple of years and then sold it.
You started then by singing phonetically the Vietnamese songs for various events. Mm-hmm. Can you sing a Vietnamese song?
Let me see if I can remember one. Quán đã khuya rồi, sao anh còn ngồi đây bên ly cà phê đắng, bên khói thuốc mờ bay, anh ưu tư gì đây trong quán buồn đêm nay, nói em nghe những chiều. There you go.
Very good. In what context would he have sung a song like that?
That is actually a song about a soldier sitting in a bar over coffee and cigarettes and just asking, why are you sitting here at this bar, and tell me your story. And it goes in about his feelings and and things like that. See, a lot of those songs that my dad gave me were very emotional to him because these were all prior to like communism took over Vietnam. So these songs that he gave me were actually very meaningful, written not for a child to sing. Like these are older women and older men belting these songs out. But my dad was always like, "Oh no, learn this and impress my friends." You know? I would normally sing it at any of his Navy reunions or any sort of like Vietnamese gathering because it's these old songs that they don't hear anymore. Once I got into school, I joined the choir and things like that, and then started singing the national anthem for events like the Asian festival in town here.
Did you sing it in English?
I sang it in English.
Oh,
and actually, it was
I'd
funny.
like to hear it in Vietnamese.
Oh, right? What's funny is it was at the Civic Center, the Asian festival was going on, and years ago there used to be an indoor soccer team called the Savannah Rugrats. So I was their national anthem singer on Saturday mornings or whenever the games were. That morning, I was in my Vietnamese garb, my ao dai, and then had to run across and sing the national anthem in my Vietnamese garb to kick off the games and then go back to the Asian festival. And in high school, I did all-state choir, and I was in governor's honors, and I loved it, and I miss it. I miss the choir singing to this day. I really, really miss it. But it's just trying to find time to do everything.
Because you have to earn a living.
Yes.
As well as perform.
Yes.
And so the high school you went to had musicals.
Yes. And what's so funny is my theater teacher, his name's Mike Monahan, he's our technical director for Jesus Christ Superstar. So Savannah, I love it. I love how small it is, and you just never know when your paths cross and will recross again. That's the beauty of it.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Johnson High School. I grew up on Wilmington Island, and so, the neighborhood school was Johnson at the time. So I went there, and my music teacher was Miss Alyssa Smith-White. She's the one that gave me the confidence and the push and taught me how to sight read and really got me into loving choir music. And then after that, I got into musical theater at school, then community theater. And because of community theater, I was in Hedwig and the Angry Inch with Bay Street Theater. It's a big rock and roll musical. And when that show was over, I had so much fun and I wanted to continue doing it. And so we had at Portman's Music, they had this program called Weekend Warriors. What they do is if you play any sort of instrument, you can sign up for this program. And they find you a drummer, you have a guitarist, a keyboardist, and a singer, and then they give you an opportunity, one night only, to perform one set. We were called Mutt, because our band was so diverse, for that one night only. And they gave us the opportunity to play over at Locos, which was located on Broughton. It was 2 bands that night, so we got to sing the first set, and the second band got to sing the second set, and it was so much fun. And we covered 4 different songs from Eric Clapton to Blondie. It was just a lot of fun. And then after that, I was in a band. We were called Cece and the Creeps. And we covered hair metal and then the Misfits to the Ramones. And it was so much fun playing in completely dives, like hole in the walls, places that I would never even step foot into had I not been in the band.
Tonight, we have Cecelia Arango. I first discovered you at the Cabaret series. How did you get involved with the Cabaret series?
So I just finished Sweeney Todd. I'm playing Mrs. Lovett at the Bay Street Theater. And Aaron Muller and Dave Harris over at the Lucas had asked me to come out and audition for this Cabaret series that they were having. And at the time, I think this was their first or second year into this Cabaret series. And so I came out, I met Kim Steiner, I auditioned, I actually sang a piece from Sweeney, and they put me on Sondheim night. And they gave me one song to sing, and it was kind of like my audition piece. I sang a song from Follies, and after that, Natasha gave me a call, and that's when we started making music.
What do you like about performing in the Cabaret series?
I love the people. I love the environment. I love the feel. I like the camaraderie and the support. And just meeting new people. I've met like all these talented musicians that have come in to help us make this, a successful cabaret. And I enjoy it because, this is not what I do for a living. And so any opportunity, any chance that I can get that fire going, keep the embers warm, I don't gig. This is it. Like the cabaret series or my musicals, those are my only outlets that I get to do what I love to do, and it's to sing. And so I love it. I'm so happy that we found a new home and that it was a successful summer series, and I cannot wait until our Christmas cabaret.
I know in talking to Natasha, she was very concerned early on because sales were a little bit slow, in particular for certain ones.
Yeah.
After she'd commented on those, I sort of watched to see what the crowd was like at the ones she mentioned, and they were almost sellouts, if not sellouts.
Yeah. In the beginning, we were worried. Obviously, new venue. Is the word going to be out? Are people going to know that this is the same cabaret series that they loved over at the Lucas? And then the other part, too, we were nervous about the ambiance. Everybody liked the feel of the Lucas Theater because you don't get that opportunity to be able to sit up on the stage and have that intimacy with the performers. And so Natasha and David did a great job in making sure in this new space that we would still be able to try to weave that in there. And so like our first night for Respect, that night, it was like a test. It was a test night to see, okay, is this going to work? How's this going to work? So then after that, we played around with the staging of the musicians, depending on each show and the numbers of audience members. So our first and last show, it was the same setup. And for our last show, we had to have it set up that way because we were completely sold out and probably overbooked. But we made it work.
And one particular setup, you had to have a dance floor.
Oh, yes. I had so much fun. That was the Havana Nights show with Gino Castillo and Lakin guest starred in that one. That was a lot of fun. And I know Natasha was worried in the beginning about setting that up and trying to figure out how to put a dance floor in there without impeding sight for the audience. And so I thought the setup was perfect. And I believe I probably danced that entire night.
I think you did, yes.
I got my steps in for the day, for sure.
Well, let's talk about some of the cabarets. We'll just go back a year. I remember seeing you in various cabarets before last year. But I think the real eye-opener for me last year was the Stevie Wonder cabaret. Because you really belted it out. How can such a small girl belt it out like that?
Oh, I love that. That's like the biggest compliment ever. I don't know. I love soul music. Well, I have to say, I love all music. Not so much on the country side, but like everything else I love. I love listening to the standards. I love listening to soul music. And I mentioned this at our last cabaret, is that it's just, music is very uplifting. And so when I'm around the house, if I'm stressed out or anything like that, I just play music. And I sing at the top of my lungs. My kids, my husband too, when they're all trying to watch TV shows, are constantly yelling at me to go to a part of the house. But I love it. It's just it's very therapeutic. And I don't know, I've always loved the whole soul side and exploring that belting, that strong voice, and I enjoy it. And I love Stevie Wonder, so it's so easy to be able to like belt and bring that strong voice out.
Tonight we have Cecelia Arango. Of the songs that you did in the Stevie Wonder Cabaret, which of the ones did you like the best, or which of the ones do you think highlighted you the best?
I actually love our duo numbers. So anytime Lakin and I had a duo, I loved it because I felt like we were able to like bounce off each other, and the intensity would grow whenever we would sing with each other. And those are my favorites. My favorites are always when you can share your talent with somebody else on stage. And so like Superstition was probably my favorite number.
Superstitious writings on the wall, very superstitious, ladders about to fall. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck, believe in things you don't understand and you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Yeah. Alright, thank you. Very superstitious. Wash your face and hands. Bring me up your problems. You all that you can. Keep me in a daydream. Keep me going strong. You don't wanna save me. Shine is my soul. When you believe in things don't understand and you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Oh no, 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 no. Y'all feeling alright? If you scream really loud, we'll do another song. We got nothing. Very superstitious. Nothing more to say. Nothing more to say. Very superstitious. Superstition. Devil's on the way. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck. The things in your past. When you believe in things you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Oh no, 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 no. It ain't the way. Go ahead. It ain't the way. No, no, no. When you believe in things you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way.
And it's just fun.
'Cause I was thinking that solo numbers would be preferred because you're out there being highlighted. Mm-hmm. Also, you don't have to work out the song with someone else.
Yeah.
You know, let's take Superstition. How did you work that out with Lakin?
So Lakin and I early on put together a set list. So we would say, okay, we've got 8 songs apiece. So let's take these two songs and make them duets. And so we would go through and meet with Eric. The beauty of it is everyone's so laid back and easygoing. There's no diva moments, or there's no trying to fight for the limelight or anything like that. That's what I love about the Cabaret series too. Is everyone is pretty much on neutral ground. There's no fighting for the limelight at all. And I love that. And working with Lakin and Eric, especially for the Stevie Wonder show, is just so easygoing. And so it's just one of those things where we would all sit together at a rehearsal and say, okay, how about you take the first verse, I'll take the second verse. The next song, we'll do the opposite. So super easy.
So I take it because you're not a country and western fan, you probably weren't in the Rhinestone Cowboy one.
I was not in the Rhinestone Cowboy one. I say that I'm not a big fan of country western, but I do love some Johnny Cash. I love Johnny Cash.
So somewhere that will sneak in.
Yes. He's a rebel.
Yeah, that's true. One of the highlights of the year for people who love music are the Christmas cabarets, because there are 3 or 4 of them all clustered right in that period of time, and they're all sold out. I mean, they sell out really quick. So if someone hears about them, you don't think about it. You simply just get the tickets. Why do you think those Christmas cabarets are so popular?
Actually, I have to tell you, the Christmas cabarets are my favorite cabaret. If you were to ask me of all the cabarets that you do, like which one is the one that you have to do, it is my absolute favorite. And I just feel like everybody's just in that spirit of love, and it's just a feel-good time. And it's just going back to the classics. Like these songs, it's so endearing to see that everyone still loves these old songs. And it doesn't matter how many times you sing it. They're just classic pieces. And so I love it. I just feel like also we're all extremely like lovey-dovey around that time of year. And it's just great. It's one of the other performances where we actually have more than 2 performers. It's very rare that we had 4 performers. But for Christmas, it's always something bigger. So we always have like the bigger cast and more musicians, and I don't know, it's just a time of togetherness, and it's just that feeling. And I beg Natasha all the time, I'm like, please have me on the Christmas cabarets.
As an audience member, you do get that family feeling when you look at the cast. Because it's sort of like brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And joking around with one another in the interaction.
The chemistry, for sure, has to be there for these Christmas shows, and they are. And you're right. The audience members feel that way. I mean, I feel that way when we banter with the audience, when we talk with the audience. It's that connection. And I think it's a stronger connection around Christmas, for sure. Because I think we're all in it together.
Has there been any conversation about this year's Christmas cabaret?
We've talked about it, and I'm actually not 100% sure if it's going to be over at the Ben Tucker Pavilion. I'm waiting for a phone call from Natasha to discuss all of that. At this time, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but for sure we will have one.
Tonight, we have Cecelia Arango. You mentioned earlier about moving to the Ben Tucker Pavilion. Having been there for the Coastal Jazz Association, and actually there at the Ben Tucker Pavilion before it was the Ben Tucker Pavilion, when it was basically a tent.
Yeah, and it was open.
Yeah. Because of scheduling issues, I'd missed the opening event there.
Yeah.
And one of my first events there was actually that first cabaret.
Yeah.
And I was stunned how wonderful a choice it was.
Yeah, I agree. Because I missed the memorial celebration for Ben Tucker at that pavilion. So it was the Wednesday before our show. That was the first time I had been in that facility. Now that they've enclosed it, it is definitely a nice facility. The Westin, they've been wonderful with setting all of that up. And I think just them being able to see the reception and the numbers of people that were there, they even started offering dinner. It's called the cabaret dinner at the clubhouse prior to the show. I thought that was awesome.
And the view. It was really interesting because to lose the view from the previous cabarets, which was a unique view, but this one is really great.
It is.
And
It's gorgeous.
Particularly, the average age of the attendee of the cabaret is a little bit more early bird special. And so when I saw the 8:30 start time,
Yeah.
I was sort of going, wonder how that's going to work. How many people is past their bedtime?
Yeah.
But it seemed to work out very well. And in fact, it works out better than having it earlier.
Yeah.
Because earlier the sun can be killer.
Exactly. And I had asked Natasha that same question when she had mentioned that the shows were going to start later at 8:30. And I had the same reaction. 8:30, that's late. And then she mentioned sun setting, if the sun's going to be in your eyes, and then on top of that, the heat. And so 8:30 worked. And it was an awesome view to see like the sunset and all the bright purples and pinks outside over the bridge and the golf course. So it did work.
And it worked out better than earlier on, too, because I noticed in some of the jazz concerts, some of the local birds tend to take up the song.
Oh, yeah.
And so you hear them singing.
Yeah.
But after dark, it's a little bit better that way. Yeah, it was really funny because Natasha was saying, oh, and you're going to see the sun set on the river. And so after the first one, I came up to her after the show and said, okay, where's the river? She said, the bridge. See the bridge? I said, okay, sunset over the bridge, not over the river. There's a distinct difference.
Oh, for sure.
It is a great location and a great time.
And parking?
Oh, yeah.
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 That's a perk.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they do the Christmas Cabaret and where they do the Christmas Cabaret, too. Because that would work out.
Yeah.
But the Christmas Cabaret, I think, is less dependent on location.
Yeah.
Because it could be a ballroom.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
if they could spring a ballroom
Yeah.
there at the Westin or in downtown or whatever, I think the Christmas Cabaret would work out okay in that environment. So back to the Christmas Cabaret. What's one of your favorite songs from this last year's Christmas Cabaret?
Probably Run Run Rudolph. That was my favorite, and actually, it wasn't even on my set list or my songs that I had given to Natasha. And Natasha was the one that came back to me and said, "You need to do Run, Run, Rudolph." Trey done it in the past, and he's like, I don't want to do it. So she gave me a version to listen to, and I loved it. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it.
What do you love about Run, Run, Rudolph?
I see your face. You're like, what? Of all Christmas songs, you picked Run, Run, Rudolph? It was such a fun number because we had so many classic songs, just all these pretty Christmas songs, and then you just threw in like this rock number in there, and I just had so much fun. And Curry Colvin was, I think, a student of Kim's. He was so nervous to play the guitar, and it was like his opportunity to shine. And I just loved like looking over at his face and seeing him smile and like get into that groove. And his parents came to see the show, and you could see how proud they were. And I just loved that. And I mean, it was just a fun song. We had so much fun with it. So that was probably the highlight for me for Christmas Cabaret. I mean, I loved all my other songs, but the one that I had, the most fun was that one.
You're listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
If you enjoy our programming on WRUULP, please support the station with a donation. As an individual, you can give any amount, become a basic station member, or become a serious fan of the station. To check out membership rates and to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Again, to donate to the station, go to www.wruu.org/individual and select to donate monthly or subscribe to an annual membership. Thank you for listening to and supporting WRUULP.
The Savannah Bicycle Campaign has published a free cycling guide and map. The Bike SAV map contains downtown and county-wide maps, tips for safe cycling, and overview of state and local laws relevant to bicycling. The guides are available at local bike stores and other businesses, at City Hall, and online at bicyclecampaign.org/routes. Print copies available by emailing info@bicyclecampaign.org. You're listening to music local and sustainable, and I'm your host, Dave Lake. Tonight, we have Cecelia Arango. The combination of working very hard at work and then trying to memorize these lines for a show, I can imagine, is quite difficult.
Oh, for sure. I was talking to Natasha. We took a show over to Spring Island, like a London Calling show, and performed it over there for that community. And we were just talking about things, and I told her, I said, this is, to me, is harder than being in a musical every weekend, just because we don't have that many rehearsals for the show. For respect, we had one rehearsal, which happened to be the night before the performance.
And that was very complicated because you had a full band.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we plucked through those songs the night before and then performed them the next day. But Eric and Robert and Darius, they make it so easy. They're 100% supportive and saying, we will follow you. Wherever you go, we will follow you. Don't worry about it. It puts you at ease, to know that, okay, if I want to end this song early, or if I accidentally end this song early, that I know you guys have my back. But yeah, it's intimidating. I'm one of those people that like to have rehearsals so that my confidence is there at 100%, so that I know I can deliver a great show. So I will say, for our first show opener, there was a lot of emotions going on because new space, new things to get used to, but having easy people to work with makes the process a lot easier. In terms of this compared to musical theater, I have to say these are a lot harder. They're tough.
but they're always so good.
Yay!
They're always so good. Now, speaking about respect the show.
Yes.
And you call it respect rather than just calling it RESPECT.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Respect. How did that come about?
Well, because last year, or no, the year before that, Trey and I did Southern Soul Night. It had great reception. People loved it. You know, the whole Otis Redding, Sam Cooke. We didn't have much of Aretha in that set list. And so now with Lakin and her powerful voice, we're like, okay, for sure, Lakin can nail these Aretha numbers. That's when we decided to go with Respect, or RESPECT. And that's how that came about.
My understanding is that often the performers will pitch shows.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll pitch shows for sure.
Okay.
That was a show that was pitched.
Okay.
The Southern Soul. It's one of our favorites. And next year, we may bypass this one and possibly come back with the Stevie Wonder show. But I'm not 100% guaranteed. But I think that's going to be the case.
Go with your strengths.
That's right.
Tonight, we have Cecelia Arango in the Respect Show. What was a favorite song?
My favorite song is Otis Redding's These Arms of Mine.
be my man. Just be my lover. Oh, oh, oh. I need your tender lips. Oh, come on and touch me. Oh, yeah. I need your tender lips. Ooh. Oh, I need your tender lips. Oh, baby, I need your tender lips. These arms of mine, they are lonely, oh lonely, lonely, and I'm feeling blue. These arms of mine, they are yearning, yeah, yearning to hold you.
The first time I remember listening to that song, I put it on repeat over and over again until I could sing it by heart. I just fell in love with him. And also the other one is James Brown. This is a Man's World.
This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it would mean nothing, nothing without a woman or love. See, man in the car to take us over the road. Man made the train to carry heavy load. Man made electric lights to take us out of the dark. Man made both on the water like no his arms. He's a man, a man, a man. But it don't mean nothing without a woman. Oh, this is a man's world. But it would mean nothing without a woman.
That was a number that scared me the night before during rehearsal, in terms of, am I going to be able to pull this off? And so that night, I don't know, I felt the energy and I felt good and it went well. But that's now one of my favorite numbers to do.
Tonight we have Cecelia Arango. What about the soul songs do you really like? I've now come to the conclusion that if there's any soul songs involved in any cabaret, Cecelia has to be there. So what about soul really engenders that enveloping of the song that you do so well?
Mm-hmm. It's this emotion, like listening to what these songs say and just be able to express that on stage. It makes that so much easier to do. And I love it. For instance, in Otis Redding's These Arms of Mine, it's that longing, that urge, and I don't know if it's maybe with musical theater in terms of how we have to sing these emotions. You have to portray that on stage. There is no dialogue. There is no backstory. You have to deliver it. In these soul songs, I just feel there's always some sort of pain and this strong emotion that when you sing these songs, you have to be able to envelop that to really do it justice. That's what I love.
In a sense, it's the drama of the song.
Yeah,
And like you say, you love musical drama.
I do.
And so I guess that's the thing I'm looking for then, that rich drama living the song.
Mm-hmm.
And another one that you did last year was London Calling.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a favorite from that?
Well, I love Amy Winehouse, but then again, she's another soul sister. So I actually didn't know if I'd be able to sing that song because, you know, not many of her songs are very clean. I was shocked that Natasha, she was like, yeah, you know, go ahead and sing it. That was probably my favorite, my Amy Winehouse number, just because it's that whole soul element into it too. And it started simple with Trey just playing on his guitar acoustically.
He left no time to regret, kept his dick wet with his same old safe bet. Me and my head high and my tears dry, get on without my guy. You went back to what you knew, so far removed from all that we went through. And I tread a troubled track,
died 100 times. You go back to her and I go back to. I go back to us. I love you much. It's not enough. You love no and I love her. Life is like a pie, and not the time when you're opening up the walls inside. We only say goodbye with words. I died 100 times. You go back to her and I go back to. We only say goodbye with words. I died 100 times. You go back to her and I go back to. We only say goodbye with words. I died 100 times. You go back to her and I go back to.
Is there anything about the lyric of that one that really touches home?
No, just because I probably can't relate to that. She was very pained, and so in theater, you play a lot of roles that are completely different people. I enjoy that element of being able to pretend that I know how it feels to be in that element. It's almost like the whole acting feel of it. But in terms of me personally relating to that song, I don't. But it's just that whole acting side of it, and being able to play that role of believing what she's singing.
Speaking about acting,
Yeah.
let's switch gears and talk a little bit about musicals. What musicals have you been in?
I've been in Rent. I played Mimi in Rent. Yitzhak in Hedwig and the Angry Inch. I've played that role 2 times, actually, and maybe playing that again in January. I've played Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, Velma in Chicago, Christmas Eve in Avenue Q, and Trina in Falsettos. I played Kathy in the last 5 years. And so now I'll be playing Mary Magdalene in the Collective Face Theater Ensemble's production of Jesus Christ Superstar.
And that starts this coming weekend.
Yep.
Yep.
September the 8th.
And runs for 3 weeks?
Yep. For those 3 consecutive weekends.
It's in a little bit unusual place.
Yes. Collective Face Theater, their shows used to be held at the Muse.
Right.
And then
Which is now closed.
Yep, which is now closed. And so David Poole, who is the director, he teaches over at Savannah State. And so they've worked out an agreement so that the shows are at the Kennedy Theater out at Savannah State. It's a really nice theater. And so we've been having our rehearsals there, and so we're looking forward to it.
Is there any particular aspect of Jesus Christ Superstar that you're particularly fond of?
Well, we are playing Jesus Christ Superstar, and we're putting it in a punk setting. It's not going to be in the traditional sense of Jesus Christ Superstar that some people may remember, like if you're basing it from the movie or like the original Broadway play. There is a punk aspect to it, and so the songs will not be sung as prettily as you've remembered if you love the soundtrack, but I like this whole edginess to it. Makes you look at it in a different light, and it's actually pretty fun to do it.
That's going to be very interesting, particularly because the Mary Magdalene songs are ballads.
Yes, they are ballads. So they will still be somewhat pretty. I just have to put my rock edge in some of those high notes that she has.
So you think it's this punk aspect that's going to make this spectacular?
I think it's more of our people delivering the message of the show, not to let the punk aspect overshadow what the show is about. The whole message of why Judas felt the need to betray Jesus in the first place. And when that show came out, it was a lot of shock and awe, I guess. Well, what is this? Why is this a rock musical or a rock opera is what it is. It's the passion of the people being able to deliver the message in this punk setting. I just think it's almost like a fresh look on a show that was produced in the 70s.
And unfortunately, you've had to replace your Judas.
Chris Blair was our Judas, and he pulled out because he blew out his vocal cords, and he just didn't feel like he should continue. And so actually Dan Finn, who was playing Peter, has stepped into the role of Judas. And Dan has been in Rent with me, and he was in the last 5 years with me as well. He's great, and he is working his butt off. He's a strong Judas. We miss Chris, but Dan stepped in, and he's doing a great job. And so we're going to have a great show.
Tonight we have had Cecelia Arango, local singer, famous for her work on the cabaret stage as well as in local musical theater. And in fact, she is in Jesus Christ Superstar, which is beginning a 3-week run beginning this coming weekend. Thank you so very much for coming in, Cecelia.
Thank you, Dave.
This has been another edition of Music Local and Sustainable, and I've been your host, Dave Lake. Save this time for another show next week.
Well, I know we ain't headed for the Hall of Fame. Gonna give it what we got, man, that ain't no shame. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2. Let me know if you can hear